sitting has resumed. Honorable Member for St. Lucie.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I first of all do welcome this opportunity to speak in this Parliament, what I would consider the real Parliament, as the Honourable Member for St. Michael North said. It is good to be back in the capital of this lovely country, in these hallowed halls. I must also, Mr. Deputy Speaker, commend you thus far in handling the proceedings here in this chamber. I'm sure it must be a very great experience for you. I stand here this evening, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in support of these budgetary measures brought to this Honorable House yesterday by Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Honorable Member for St. Michael Northeast. However, before I proceed further with my contribution, let me pause to express my deep gratitude to the wonderful constituents of St. Lucie for so reposing their confidence in me for a second term. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, in 2018, some 37 years after having elected the first Barbados Labour Party candidate to the House back in 1981, I was given that opportunity to represent their interests in these hallowed chambers. And having done so for 3.5 years, history was written on January the 19th, 2022, when for the very first time a Barbados Labour Party candidate was given a second term to represent this constituency. And I, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, am eternally grateful to the constituents for allowing me to be their voice in these hallowed chambers. I unreservedly commit, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to giving them the proper representation and bringing progress to this constituency. If I may share my views on this budget for the time allotted to me, I would sum it up all in 3 words. 3 words. And I see my friend, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, nodding, because he would have done something similar to this, and you will know when I will speak those words. Reasonable. The budget has been reasonable, responsible, and indeed a responsive budget. Reasonable, responsible, and responsive. When it was announced that the budget will take place on the 14th of March, I believe many Barbadians, many of my constituents, perhaps were not sure what to expect. And when you hear about a budget, when you talk about a budget, persons look for increase in taxes and measures that would come to reduce your spending power and things such as that. But in my view, the measures were in the best interest of Barbados in the best interest of Barbadians, Mr. Deputy Speaker, having gone through the ravages of an ashfall, having gone through a freak storm, having gone through a hurricane, and still dealing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with a monster called COVID-19. And when we look at it, this administration has done reasonably or very well. And to be honest, I'm not sure if there would have been any other administration, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that would have managed all that we would have had to go through in these last 3.5, almost 4 years. We stuck to the task. We knew that there were decisions that had to be made, and sometimes tough decisions as well. And we did what we had to do. In our manifesto, of our 2022 manifesto in the last general election, we spoke of the core values of transformation on page 6. We talked about people-centered leadership. We talked about government delivering for all. We talked about pride and industry through active citizenship. We spoke about Beijing ownership being important. And we talked about innovation driving opportunities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the measures introduced yesterday certainly follow this direction that we have set, or this mandate that we have been given based on our manifesto by the people of Barbados. While preparing to come here today, I engaged a couple of constituents on the phone in trying to determine or to get a response in relation to what the budgetary measures meant and how they saw the budget. And I must say that there has not been any real negative comment in relation to the measures introduced yesterday. As a matter of fact, people are excited, and a couple of queries were raised nonetheless in relation to the renewable energy aspect of the budget. When persons be given the opportunity, as the Prime Minister indicated, that every homeowner have the opportunity to place solar photovoltaic panels on their roof, to be part of the renewable energy process and the renewable energy charge that this country is undertaking. One of my constituents said to me she has a very keen interest in this. And I asked this question on her behalf this evening because I believe that, as she indicated, she will be listening to the entire debate to hear us expand, and I'm sure that the Honourable Member for St. James Central is fully capable of expanding, and he will deliver the goods when it is his turn to make his contribution in this regard. In terms of financing, in terms of what the government in itself would be doing to assist persons an example was given, and I'm not an electrician, I'm not in that field, but an example was given if someone has a house and they're putting panels on the house and they also have a chicken pen that they also want to put panels on as well. They talked about first phase she asked a question, inquired of the Light and Power, what would be the cost in terms of managing that process, and was indicated that a one phase would not help her. She would have to do some three phase adjustment, but that would be kind of costly. And therefore, there are persons out there who would want to be and who are willing to be part of government's renewable energy drive in terms of the placing of photovoltaic panels on their roofs, but they may not have the financing to necessarily do that. I know in our manifesto, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we spoke about working with credit unions and financial institutions and so on to be able to build out this particular aspect on this area of our economy, giving the ordinary homeowner a chance and an opportunity to be part of this. And that is very, very important, because at the end of the day, we as a government and we as a party have always been that party that reaches out to the ordinary person and giving the ordinary person a chance to be part of the development process within Barbados. And here again, we are doing it, and I want to give that constituent the assurance that as she continue to listen to this budget debate, that the response to her, certainly to her queries and her concerns in terms of being part of this whole process, will most definitely, I can count on my good friend, the Honourable Member for St. James Central, to give her that the answers to her queries. Thank you, Honourable Member. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, one of the things that I would want to commend highly in this budgetary debate, and as one of the measures taken, as you move across, and I'm sure as you moved across your constituency, and we all moved across our constituencies, persons were complaining with respect to gas prices, diesel prices. I was a bit concerned myself as gasoline went to $4.15, 13 cents, I think it was, per liter last time. And we know gasoline and is needed, diesel is needed to do a number of things in industrial sector, and it is part of transportation costs, and then obviously it filters down into the actual pricing, because there are times that the merchants would factor in that cost or pass on that cost to the consumer. So a reduction in the tax on the capping of the tax related to gasoline and diesel is a step in the right direction, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and must be commended highly. Must be commended highly, because the government listens, this government listens, this government understands, and this government governs based on what is best for the country at the time, no doubt, but obviously also listening to its citizens and so on. But I want to be sure And one of my concerns is having reduced or having made this adjustment, I can recall as well that the Prime Minister mentioning that they should be publishing of prices over a period of time so that you know where the prices are going. Because if we reduce taxes, which we believe would ultimately lead to a reduction in prices, a reduction in the cost of living, then we have to have those mechanisms in place, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to ensure that the consumer is benefiting from that reduction. We have to put the mechanisms in place to ensure that it is passed on. Because what often happens, and from someone who came out of the private sector, who spent a lot of my life working in the private sector, sometimes you have, when there are measures in place that causes prices to go up, when those measures are reduced to cause the prices to come down, those prices do not change. They may stand where they are for a little while, and at this point in time where we have the war going on, Russia versus Ukraine, and the war going on, and which these are things outside the control of a small country like Barbados, and there are things that would happen with the changing of prices in terms of oil and so on. They were bound to affect us at some point in time. It will be bound to affect us. So I want to know on behalf of the constituents in St. Lucie that there will be mechanisms in place to track and to ensure, for the most part, that whatever savings or reductions that we as a government make to assist the consumer, that the consumer end up being the beneficiary of that measure, and not that it goes to the profit line, the profit of the business place or the business house. That is absolutely important for that monitoring mechanism. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, as I listen to the budget and having been or representing a constituency, Mr. Deputy Speaker, where there are two major agricultural projects going on. Two major agricultural projects going on, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I was very much pleased because I remember at a point in time in 2021 when I visited the Spring Hall land lease project and also the project at Mount Poyer, concerns were raised especially by these two farmers on these two projects with respect to the water. Indeed, as a matter of fact, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I heard the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, member for St. Philip South, referred to it as recently as last Friday with the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. We had a tour to areas in St. Lucie where we will be, because the biggest problem, first of all, is the supply of water to these projects, Mount Poyer and Spring Hall. And as recently as last Friday, I want to thank the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and her team at Barbados Water Authority and those officials for so meeting and coming together in St. Lucie to determine how best we can help those farmers, because the truth is that if you have X amount of land and we want to increase food security and nutritional food security, and agriculture has become a major plank of this administration, and this is something which I must commend the Honourable Prime Minister for, the focus being given to agriculture in under this particular administration. But one of the problems with agriculture on those two projects is the access to water. Access to water. And I was therefore very pleased to have the Honourable Deputy, as I said, and her team from Barbados Water Authority and those other persons involved looking at how access to water can be improved for those farmers out there. I've had conversations with a number of young people in my constituency, and one as recently as a couple of days ago. And they're interested in farming, they're interested in being, as a matter of fact, they're on in the feed program, which is a very, very important and community-based program, a very good program. But the issue is that the water has been the problem. You have crops that need X amount of water to be able to survive or to be able to give you the benefit in terms of your profitability and so on. But that has not been forthcoming. And this youngster said to me, I'm very much interested in agriculture, but if we could get some water at Mount Poyer, that would be great. So we have the government moving in two directions in terms of coming to the assistance of the farmers. First, we are pursuing plans, or we're looking to assist where the access to water is concerned. And in addition to that, the Honourable Prime Minister announced in the budgetary measures, because persons right now use water from the BWA, and they pay some, perhaps what we call exorbitant rates or high water bills, especially when they have to use water for certain plants, for certain crops like tomatoes and things like that. I actually had a conversation, and we had a conversation with a farmer who was with us, who indicated that perhaps she would be happy if the water rates were at least $2, if the rate was $2.64. But we have gone better. The Prime Minister has introduced it and gone even better, bring it down to $1.80. So I know that that farmer is absolutely pleased, because she does not now have to pay, because her water bill will actually be reduced immensely. She was willing, she said she could survive at $2.64 per cubic meter. But we have brought it down. The Honourable Prime Minister in the budgetary measures have brought it down to $1.80. And I certainly am grateful for that on the behalf of farmers and so on in St. Lucie. We also, nonetheless though, I would want to urge the Honourable Minister of Agriculture. We still have the project with the reservoir at Crab Hill, right behind the police station, and I would want to see the Stantec study has been done, and I would want to see that project come into fruition on the behalf, just like the farmers at River have their reservoir being built or almost completed. I would want to see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the reservoir at Crab Hill being completed on the behalf of the farmers on the Spring Hall Land Lease project, so that they too can have proper water access to be able to assist Barbados, assist us in our goals for food security and nutritional food security, Mr. Deputy Speaker. One of the other things that I want to just...
Honourable member, you have 5 more minutes. Yes, the time is flying.
Lord. Anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I shall attempt, I certainly will abide by the rulings of the House, but I got to touch a couple of these points here very quickly, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It was indicated in the budget as well, and we know as part of our manifesto pledge to the people of Barbados, that we'll be building 10,000 houses. It may sound very ambitious, perhaps it is, but I believe that we have the capacity to be able to deliver, not just with with some person like the Honourable Member for St. George South, who has a lot of private sector experience, so he knows how to get things done, having worked in the area of in industry much of his life in another place in St. Lucie. I am certain that he has the wherewithal, and he has the know-how, and he has these private sector skills to get this job done. But I want to ask the Honourable Member, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to have the groundbreaking at Coconut Hall to be able to let those people know that we are pushing ahead with this, because housing is very much needed in the northernmost constituency. And we have Coconut Hall, we have Colleton, and we have Bright Hall as part of Planning Gains, where we will want to see some housing as well, because this is what is being demanded. Only yesterday, as I went into, I was in a store, a particular place, and one of my constituents approached me on this level in relation to housing. Everybody wants to own a piece of the rock, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I am happy to hear of what the government has put on the table in relation to the provision of the building of these houses and so on. And I look forward, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I look forward to welcoming these projects in the constituency of St. Lucie. There are a couple other things that I want to mention quickly. We were talking about the water, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for St. Michael South East for visiting us with our water issues that we've had from time to time. The Honourable Member happened to be responsible for roads, so I'm not going to talk about roads here. We can have a private conversation in that regard. But I'm glad for the kind of attention that is being given and the support. This government is a government that cares, and it's not just St. Lucie, it's all over Barbados. Now, I listened to the estimates debate, and in the estimates debate, as you know, I would have been in a similar position where you are, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and there wasn't much that I could say, but this is my and give me 2 minutes, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This is my time to just speak now. And I heard one of the officers from the Ministry of Transport Works said they pave in the south first, in Christchurch, Honourable Member for St. James North. They pave in the south, they pave in St. Michael, and it's now the time for the north. And I look forward to the constituencies of St. Peter, St. Lucie, and parts of St. James to get their fair share of the cake now. Because we've got St. James Central and coming. Honourable Member for St. James Central, St. James, there are 3 constituencies, so all of us form part of the Happy North. And we will work together to ensure, but I know the head of the Honourable Minister of Transport, Works and Water Resources, Member for St. Michael South East, and Deputy Prime Minister, I know she is very focused, and she has shown a lot of love to St. Lucie thus far. and I will continue to expect that. We have some issues in terms of employment, and we would want to we believe that these opportunities that come, or with the building boom and everything else that this government is doing, will, Mr. Deputy Speaker, bring employment. I'm sure you too have a lot of young people there. You have a lot of people across the various constituencies across Barbados who are looking for employment. And certainly, I support these measures. I say they're reasonable, Mr. Speaker, they're responsible, they're responsive, and I look forward to the benefits of these measures that are implemented for them to redound into the benefit of the constituents of St. Lucie. I thank you.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. First of all, let me congratulate the Member of Parliament for St. Michael North East, the Honourable Prime Minister, for an excellent budget presentation yesterday. It was yesterday's budget, delivered by today's woman for tomorrow's people. And I want to say, you talk about equilibrium and balance budget, we can go on and on, but we can't satisfy everyone. I want to say that budget was the greatest good for the greatest number, and the greatest number of Barbadians. And when you look at all the measures that were implemented, and the measures that we seek to augment in terms of realizing the dream of the ordinary Barbadian, that which I refer to as the Bajan dream, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, it was out of the stratosphere. But I want, Mr. Speaker, sir, to open my right flag equally, to say to those in the envelopes of Christchurch, those who have sent me to this place on more than one occasion, a heartfelt thanks. I want to say to the people of Christchurch West Central that it is an honor and privilege to be here standing, representing their interests and representing their cause. And I know that a lot of persons may not believe it, but we have biblical people in Christchurch West Central, steeped in church and in consecration, man. I want to say, like the good book of Matthew 7, verses 7, I asked in 2018 to repose confidence in me to lead him. And they answered the call. I sought in 2022, and it was given to me. And I'm sure whenever that bell rings again, and I knock on the door, it will be opened by the good constituents of Christchurch West Central to me, to send me to this place again. Mr. Speaker, I was given the mandate to be able to represent not only the green economy and the green environment, but by extension, the maritime and the blue environment. And I know full well that you understand the importance of GAMAS, because that is what my ministry speaks to. And you know that green and blue is equal to, some people may call it violet, but I refer to it as turquoise. And I want to say, I call it, in an affable way, the turquoise ministry. But because green comes on the color spectrum before blue, I want to start with the green environment, an environment which I happen to lead for the last 3 or so years. And I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, before we had the vagaries of climate change, before we had the vagaries of COVID-19 as we know it, the existential threat on everyone's lip was climate change. That which disrupted the lives of all, not only small and developing states like Barbados, but all countries around the world. And it's how we respond to those vagaries and those idiosyncrasies that will cause us to survive the test of time. The reality of it, Mr. Speaker, it will save us and save the unborn child. And I want to start by saying, what have we been doing in the ministry that will cause us to resist these challenges. You often hear me talk about the Clean and Green program. And I want to start with that because the importance of a program, which is not only to clean, and I will talk to Barbadians later on in my speech about the entrepreneurial nature and the behaviors that I will not tolerate as a representative of this ministry as it relates to illegal dumping, especially on our gullies and our ecosystems. I am saying, Mr. Speaker, that in order to have a green post-COVID economic recovery, there must be an effort, an unbridled one, with the planting of trees around Barbados. Not only are we going to clean, but we are saying equally, we are going to green this country because the importance of creating those green carbon sinks must never, ever be underestimated as it relates to the ability to sequester that harmful carbon dioxide that seeks to destroy our protection in the atmosphere and our ozone layers. That is as important as waking up one morning and breathing oxygen itself. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, what we started was a journey to plant 1 million trees. We are about 350,000 trees thus far. And every single day, I want to say that Barbadians have become involved in a process that will basically protect their lives. That noble gesture of planting a tree. And as our Minister of Agriculture earlier alluded to, the importance of planting fruit trees, those grapefruit trees, those lemon trees, all the trees that you can think about that is important for our health and soursop. Not only for the trees, but I can talk about biodiversity because their leaves serve as a natural repellent for our mosquitoes. And that is another existential threat that we were faced with, causing the deaths of about 2 million people prior to COVID-19 as we know it. So these things must operate as one synergy. And I'm saying to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that when we speak about cleaning and greening, I was given the arduous task of creating 30 green sites across Barbados with the Clean and Green program. I want to report to this August chamber that thus far we have created 31 green sites across the length or breadth of Barbados called the Clean and Green program. You cannot have in this country an idyllic song by an iconic group called Beautiful, Beautiful Barbados, and we don't have a beautiful country that represents the whole ethos of greening and the concept of a green economic recovery. It doesn't make sense. So I am saying, Mr. Speaker, in the budget, we are saying to Barbadians, we are going to create. And I put in every single person, all my colleagues on notice, 60 more seats for the new, so 60 more clean and green sites for the new financial year. You can start looking around your constituencies and start identifying 2 sites where you will tell me as minister and my team, because there's a team in the ministry that is responsible for creating these clean and green sites. You'll be able to tell me, Minister, I need this space, which I will create a recreational facility. I will create that green space for commercial activity. I will create that green space for our sporting activities. That green space must bring aesthetics to my constituency. That is the type of conversation I want to hear from my colleagues. And that, too soon is never too soon. But I want to say to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are talking green economic recovery. We are talking the planting of trees. But to answer the United Nations General Assembly call for a decade of ecosystems resuscitation, we must also acquiesce 30-30-30 vision. 30% of our biodiversity must be realized by the year 2030. And that is a simple notion that we must adjust our brains to. Biodiversity. And I'm talking about the biodiversity unit. A lot of persons in here, the last time I spoke, I asked my minister colleague a question in the well. A lot of Barbadians asked me, what is the Chlorcebus sabia? The green monkey, man. and how we are going to treat to those things as part of our CITES, the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species. And we are signatory to that species because we recognize as a small island developing state that we cannot do it alone. And the preservation of our biodiversity will preserve our lives and our future. And that is why the importance of it must be repeated in every single household. The reason why the baobab tree, we only have 4 adult species in Barbados. The reason why they are on the verge of extinction is because we kill most of the bat population with our spraying and our pesticides and all the other ways of getting rid of our bat population. But the flower of the tree is a nocturnal flower. The only way it's pollinated is if we have bats around. The importance of biodiversity. I want to say to Barbadians that the baobab tree, found in Asia, found in Africa, those dry climates, is one of the most climate-resistant trees in the world. The most climate-resistant tree. A tree that is able to hold water in its sap, allowing persons to be able to use it for drinking purposes in dry times. We, in Barbados, we recognize that we are about the 10th most water-scarce country in the world. I mean, you heard the Minister of Agriculture speak about water preservation and the way how we can dam water for the farmers and things, the importance of biodiversity and ensuring that these trees not only survive the test of times, but we are able to propagate those. You often hear me talk about the fellow Dr. Spulker, the leaf-toed gecko, and the importance of the project we are doing at the BDF to rehabilitate those geckos because they have a voracious appetite for mosquitoes and they have the visual acuity to be able to identify which we cannot do, which the Ministry of Health cannot do, the eggs and the larvae on the trees, the plants and leaves of trees. When we are spraying and fogging across this country, we are killing the adult mosquitoes, but nothing is happening with the eggs on the tree. Biodiversity again, because if you are not able to kill the eggs when the climatic conditions are perfect, the eggs hatch and cause the perennial problem of mosquito-borne diseases, the importance of biodiversity. And I'm saying that we are not only acquiescing to the request of the United Nations and the General Assembly, it is for every single Barbadian, young and old, to understand the importance of preserving those things natural. I will speak about the biodiversity in the marine environment when I get to that. But I'm speaking of the green economy and the importance of having a green economic recovery so that Barbados can survive the test of time. I want to go on further. I want to say to you, I traveled in December to about 7 or 8 different Caribbean countries, looking at botanical gardens. I want to thank the Member of Parliament, the Honourable Prime Minister, for her efforts in ensuring that we have a natural oasis, a perfect place of recreation, a lounge area, an area where people can balance their humors. We hear now about a retirement home, a geriatric home for the elderly, and that excites every chamber in my body. You know how you have a soft spot for those who are in the twilight of their years? No secret in Barbados, man.
I can't imagine.
And I want to say to you, the importance of having this space where Barbadians can enjoy and talk and PTA too. So for the young ones in the dawn and exciting areas of their life, they can extend themselves in the botanical garden as well and have what they know as their own entertainment. I am saying to Barbadians, we are not only going to plant a variety of gardens in the botanical area, 242 acres or so, and then we're going to develop the international garden on the other side, where countries from around the world can have a realistic stake in building out that international space. We are not only going to do that, but what we said is that there must be an appreciation for science to help build out this botanical garden. I want to publicly thank our lone dendrologist, Mr. Nigel Jones. Sometimes I call him a xylologist because he understands about cohesion and adhesion of water up a plant, or the root and stems of the tree. I want to thank Mr. Jones today for leading the charge and being able to bring the botanical garden to the beautiful space that it is today. Nigel Jones and the team at the Botanical Garden, I want to thank you from the host of Parliament today. You have done an excellent job. And we have to start cherishing. We have to start cherishing that which is beholden to us and that which we have allowed to develop in this country. He is the only dendrologist in the Western Hemisphere. And we must not take this science lightly. We must understand that this science is the science that will be responsible for ensuring that we have the forestry, we have the trees, and we have the species in terms of the flora to survive the test of times. Without this green economic recovery, we cannot be talking about all of those things that we imagine to do in the next century or so. And that is why my conversation, I must bring it directly to the importance of the botanical garden. So we said that the science must be an important aspect of the botanical garden. And here it is that we are now on the cusp of building out a herbarium, which deals with the dry leaves and the science of those, a taxonomy center, which speaks to the classification of trees, and a germplasm looking at different stock genetic material to ensure that these trees can survive the test of time. There is no other botanical garden in the hemisphere, as I know it, that has a taxonomy center, that has a herbarium, and equally a germplasm to do that. And that is the importance of having someone like Nigel Jones, the dendrologist, to be able to augment these things. I want to also speak, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, about the highway beautification project. And I want to lend my voice to all those persons in Barbados who, on a daily basis, pay homage to those workers. Clean again and green. They're not only cleaning the highways, there are 7 highways. Now the song called 7 Steps to Heaven too. It's 7 Steps to Highway Heaven in Barbados. There are 7 highways, and we are going to clean and beautify every single one under this project. And those naysayers and fearmongers, and those who may want to critique those youngsters for working hard to be on the front line of not only beautifying this country, but ensuring that we are able to remove the indigenous flora, we remove all the garbage from the drains, and allow the planting of a hedgerow that protects us from the soil erosion as we know it. I want to say to those youngsters, they are at the forefront of climate change, just like every single person in this land. And I want to say to those who feel that there should not be getting X amount and Y amount because they don't see the importance of these youngsters. I say today that it is like folly jumping up and down on stilts in Barbados, man. When you hear the person start the foolishness about those youngsters should never be engaged and have a tangible state. Further than engaging them, what we are doing is allowing them to be entrepreneurs through the Member of Parliament for St. James Central by allowing them to form cooperatives and businesses in Barbados to be able to cater to any contract that government has in its existence in terms of beautifying this country, in terms of building up Barbados. That is what I'm saying. And I will defend it with every sinew of my being. Service is my medicine. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say to the 720 that are around the constituencies beautifying and working hard to help build up this country, they are at the front line of our fight for climate change. To those in the botanical garden working, I want to pay homage on you today for doing an excellent job using your sweat expenditure to ensure that we have a natural oasis where persons not only in Barbados can enjoy, but the rest of the world as well. These are important things that will speak to who we are as a people. And it must never be underestimated the importance of these young men and women, because I believe in equal stake. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am saying in the Natural Heritage Department, we are signatory to the Ramsar Convention, a convention which speaks to all the wetlands and how we are able to protect those wetlands, whether there's the one in Long Pond, those in the Greenhall Natural Sanctuary and the Greenhall surrounding areas, and another wetland in the Chancery Lane area. We are going to protect these wetlands because we understand the importance of having these natural wetlands, not only as a fish stock, but as an important part of our biodiversity and ecosystems where bird feeding and such is concerned. I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Environmental Protection Department in my ministry plays an important role in ensuring that the air that we breathe is of the right quality. You heard that there was an issue, even in this August chamber that I stand, in terms of building-related illnesses and the standards that we're supposed to exist in. All of this and this testing, all these testings are done by the Environmental Protection Department. When we had the ashfall, the persons on the front line of those tests were the officers of the Environmental Protection Department, ensuring that the ambient air quality that we breathe, that quality does not go beyond what is recognized as international standard. When you look at aggregate matter, particular matter as it relates to a particular environment, those are the things the Environmental Department look after. When there's the issue about parts with the persistent organic pollutants and all those things, the Environmental Protection Department, what happened in our water supply to ensure that what we drink. And I want to be able to say that the Environmental Protection Department's role in ensuring that we have good quality potable water must be emphasized and emphasized now. Because unlike certain countries, I want Barbados to understand the privilege of turning on a tap and being able to drink water from it. How much countries in the world has this ability? How much citizens around the world has this ability to turn on a tap and know full well, they have the quiet, calm assurance that what you get from that tap is of good standard and quality that you can consume? And that's what the Environmental Protection Agency does. They're responsible for ensuring that the ecological system, that what goes into the environment does not pollute the system, and that there is no damage to the underground supply, whether it is water or whether it is the soil that is responsible for growing the plants or what's not. Environmental Protection Department, that is their role. And then there is the Planning and Implementing and Policy Unit, which deals with all the multilateralism and stuff. So that is the Environmental Department and the Ministry from the green side. It is the blue, because they want to get through all of this in 30 minutes. And in order for you to do that, I have to have the Usain Bolt moment. But Mr. Speaker, sir, in the blue economy, and I want to say to the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South, he was not having the blues because he was able to see everything in red and ensure that everything was realized in the blue economy. I want to thank the blue boy, my colleague from St. Michael South, for doing an excellent job to ensure that we have the phytosanitary standards, that tuna at some stage will be able to be exported in Barbados, because Barbados has now reached the standard, the international standard, in terms of being able to export fish at the international market. I want to pay homage to the Member of Parliament of St. Michael South for working hard to ensure that this happened. I also want to thank him for the pristine environment that we see in the markets. That is the work started by the Honourable Member for St. Michael South. When you go to the markets, you see this pristine environment. It makes you feel like buying fish, man. I'm saying to you that I don't only want to look at the highfalutin things in the sea and the maritime space. I don't only want to look at the polymetallic nodules at the bottom of the ocean that may bring value that which other countries may be looking at. And I don't only want to be look at those rare minerals that may be under the scope of other international countries. I want to be able to look at the maritime environment, delivering to ordinary lives the ability for them to be sustained, and the fishing community to be able to improve their livelihoods and have a tangible stake in the whole fishing industry. I want to be able to bring it down to the basic level so those who are in the industry can benefit from aquaculture, that which the Honourable Member for St. Michael South started. And he thought about mariculture too, because they're talking about the marine environment. And some people may call it pisciculture. It is not vernacular, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. Pisciculture And I see people laughing, and here is not what the guys do at the back of the Treasury building. Has nothing to do with that. It's PISCI, pisciculture. Is responsible for ensuring that that fish is responsible for the fish becoming a food commodity. That is what it does. To be able to market that fish, to allow the fishermen, and that's what you have here called the fish aggregating devices started by my good friend here. And those devices ensure that the fish aggregate and the fishermen will have a better catch and a better stock. All those things were done in the maritime environment because, as I said, it is how it affects the ordinary man at the end of the day. The former minister started a boat building program, teaching youngsters in fishing communities across this country the art of boat building. It is an indigenous art and appropriately taught by the old fishermen. We must never underestimate the importance of transitioning and passing down that value information as part of a value chain. And that is what we are doing with the boat building.
Honourable member, you have 5 more minutes.
I tell you, Mrs. Deputy Speaker, I understand the Usain Bolt moment, and I understand the custom Samantha one too. So I will try to speed up. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the fish aggregating devices, as it was on to, and the fishermen having a tangible state must never, ever be underestimated. We are going to ensure that we rehabilitate that coral because we have started a program with the coral nursery to ensure that coral and our reef stock, that those two things are improved so that we will have the aggregation of fish and the species needed to create that maritime environment. We are not only talking about the green carbon sink, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are talking about the blue carbon sink where we are augmenting the marine flora to ensure that it serves its purpose as being able to extract that harmful carbon of the atmosphere. Right now, as we speak, about 25% of the carbon is extracted from the green or the environment or the forestry. The other 25% is extracted by the maritime environment. So we are trying our best to be able to augment that which is in our maritime space so that we can have that blue carbon sink working for the benefit of Barbados. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, you heard us spoke about the definition swap and to have a maritime spatial plan, a plan that sees everything and is able to demarcate areas of the sea to ensure that that area which is responsible for augmenting the fish, that area is demarcated. The area that is responsible for oil exploration, that is demarcated. The area that you can put the wind and to allow the wind turbine to generate renewable energy, that area is demarcated. We are doing everything in our power to ensure that we get full value from the ocean. We are saying as well, and I want to thank the government of Japan for their generous contribution of $2 million to ensure, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we have the equipment to deal with harvesting the seaweed from our ocean, a perennial rich to our people. And we are saying that we thank them, but not only that, we are going to go a step further. There must be a seaweed recycling project in this country. And I am saying today that the Minister of Agriculture for the Member of Parliament for St. Philip South has a problem as it relates to food and the feedstock for the agriculture industry. We have the solution with the seaweed. And trust me, with the experience and the training and the scientific knowledge from countries like Argentina, we can get the green seaweed, that brown seaweed and the rice seaweed to be able to give to our ruminants, the black-bellied sheep, the cows, and what's not, so that we can reduce our methane because we recognize that methane is also a serious problem as it relates to the damage to our ozone layer and the stratosphere. These are the things that we are talking about. So when you look at this country, we have to talk about it in a circular way. We have to look at the linkages between ministries, how we help to augment each other's cause. And that is what this government is single focused on, to ensure that Barbadians have a tangible stake in every single thing that happens in this country. And that is what the budget yesterday delivered. It's not only talking the talk, as my good friend here alluded to, Member of Parliament for the South, now walking the walk. It is doing the do for the good people of this country. I want to say In closing, because there is so much to talk, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will end up with a lot of frying here. I want to say to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want the people of Christchurch by Central to hear. In closing, I try, this government tries. We persevere. We try and we do good things every day. We have left the word "I can't" out of our vocab because I can't gets nothing done for the good people of Barbados. Then I am sure we will say that we as a government will try and leave the word "I can't" alone. We will have a divorce with the word "I can't." Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Leader for Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 7:35 p.m.
Beg to second that, ma'am.
I beg to move that this House suspend until 7:35 p.m. All those members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This House now stands suspend until 7:35 p.m.